All right, chickens, welcome back. This is Miss Adams. So at this point, you should be on task 3. That means you've already completed task 1 and task 2, so your group is moving on to the poem. Quick refresher about the skills that we are practicing today, all right? So at the top of the page, I want you to write skills. I know that we've already written this once, but we're going to do it again just to remind ourselves about what we're learning and practicing. So the first skill is understanding, which we said in this case is identifying figurative language, except this time we're going to be working with a poem. Then, after we do that, we will practice our second skill, which is to make inferences about the text with figurative language. All right? And our final skill that we are practicing today is to draw conclusions. Ooh, barely fit it on there. Draw conclusions about the impact of figurative language. All right, so reminder of what this looks like when we are reading and kind of inferring and drawing conclusions. So the identifying part, that is what we highlight in the text. All right, making inferences is our annotations. And drawing conclusions is our answer to questions. Okay, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We can do this. All right, so just a reminder, when we're reading a poem, we have 3 different reads that help us get through and process what this poem is saying. All right, so read 1 is we're just reading through the poem to identify the tone. Remember, the tone is the feeling, and whether that is positive or negative, okay? Then we're going to underline words in the poem that create that tone, all right? In read 2, we're going to read the questions on the next page and then mark up the parts of the poem, all right? So this is where we're going to find our lens. So let's go ahead and do read 1. I will read through this first stanza. All right, so I'm going to work with you in just the first stanza. Remember, stanzas like the paragraph of a poem, okay? And then we're going to determine, is this tone positive or negative? And then we're going to underline the words that create that feeling here, okay? All right, so the cremation of Sam McGee. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge. I cremated Sam McGee. All right, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting really like kind of this like eerie, creepy, negative vibe going on here, okay? I see like midnight. I see secret. I see blood and cold. I see night and cremated. Cremated is when you burn someone's body after they've died. All right? Maybe a lake. Maybe lakes are creepy, especially at night. You know, scary movies with the lakes. Okay, so negative tone. Now I'm going to go into my read 2. And remember, step 1 of read 2 is to read the question on the next page and then mark the parts of the poem in the questions, okay? So we're going to turn to the next page, all right? And the first question says, how does the metaphor in the first stanza, so that's the one we're working with, give an idea of the setting? All right, so quick review about what we did in that first task. Metaphor is a non-literal comparison, and typically of two different things, okay? When we're seeing the first stanza, we know that that means like the poem's paragraph, so the first paragraph of the poem, okay? Gives us an idea of the setting. So the setting is where the story happens. All right, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to mark this up on that first stanza. So when I go and I flip back to the first stanza, I'm going to just kind of box it here on the side. Let's say first stanza. All right, and in this first stanza, what am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for a metaphor and how that metaphor gives me an idea of the setting. Okay, so that was first step of read 2, all right? Then I'm going to read the poem line by line, and after each line I'm going to highlight any figurative language and explain the comparison being made, okay? Really, I want to think about like the type of figurative language because I'm going to be looking for metaphor. All right, so if I can identify that things are figurative language but not metaphor, then that narrows down what I have to make inferences with. All right, so we're going to read again line by line. There are strange things done in the midnight sun. Okay, well, if it's midnight, there's no sun, right? So right here, I'm going to highlight that. That's a form of figurative language. All right, we call this an oxymoron. Remember, an oxymoron is two words that have opposite meanings that are put together, okay? So midnight and sun are opposites, but we put them next to each other. That makes it an oxymoron. Not a metaphor, though, so I'm going to keep going. By the men who moil for gold. Moil means like to look or search. I don't really see any figurative language there. The Arctic trails have their secret tales. The Arctic trails have their secret tales. So trails can't have secrets. All right, that would be personification. Okay, only really humans have secrets, so we're giving human-like qualities to an inanimate or non-living object, which is a trail. Again, not quite a metaphor. That would make your blood run cold. All right, well, I know that blood is typically warm, especially if you're alive. So if it's making your blood run cold, we're comparing two different things, warm blood to cold blood. So I'm going to highlight this. I think that this is a metaphor. So I'm going to identify metaphor here. Okay. The Northern Lights have seen queer sights, so very strange things, but the strangest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge, so that night near the lake, I cremated Sam McGee. I don't see any other figurative language in this stanza. All right, so cool. I have done both 2 and 3 for read 2, so I'm going to move on to read 3. It says, read the poem stanza by stanza and annotate for main ideas and associations for each stanza. Well, I'm just going to take you through this first one, okay? So I'm going to read it again. I will come up with a main idea, all right? And then I will make my inferences, which is that second skill that we're practicing. Now, remember, I, with my lens, am only making an inference based off of this metaphor because that's what I'm going to need to answer the question, all right? So, there are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge, I cremated Sam McGee. All right. He's saying that there are strange things done by men who are looking for gold. So men who are, you know, searching for wealth or trying to become wealthy do very maybe crazy things, all right? So men, let's say, looking to gain money, do crazy things. All right, main idea. Okay, so again, my associations, those are my inferences. My focus is only on this metaphor, all right? So I'm going to look at this metaphor, blood run cold, and I'm going to make just associations for the metaphor, all right? Thinking about this idea of setting, all right? Because when blood runs cold, that's kind of creepy to me, but I want to think about how does this show me the setting? What does this tell me about the setting? Well, if it's so crazy, so creepy, that my blood runs cold, and I see this Arctic trail there, this might give me the idea that this is taking place in an area that's really freezing. Maybe that's part of what the men are, that part of the crazy thing that these men are doing. So they're in a place that is freezing. A synonym or a word that means the same thing as freezing is frigid. Maybe icy. All right, so that's my inference right there. Okay, now my third skill is drawing the conclusion. So I'm going to go back to the question, okay? I'm going to answer that question based off of this inference that I just made with my associations. So how does the metaphor in the first stanza give an idea of the setting? Again, same words from the question are in the answer. So the metaphor, and I want to be specific about what the metaphor is, so I'm going to put a quote in here. The metaphor, blood run cold in the first stanza gives the reader the idea that this story takes place in an area that is freezing by, and just quick reminder, so freezing is my association. So this is my inference, and now I'm going to show this non-literal comparison. So by, or through, might be the better way to say that, through the non-literal comparison of warm blood in the body turning cold. Because we know that the blood doesn't actually turn cold, okay? All right, perfect. So how does the metaphor in the first stanza give an idea of the setting? The metaphor, blood run cold, in the first stanza gives the reader the idea that this story takes place in an area that is freezing through the non-literal comparison of warm blood in the body turning cold. Beautiful. I just drew a conclusion based off of the figurative language. So now you're going to take these exact same steps with your group and finish the poem. Good luck.